Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a nice day today. I am Dr. Diaz, and I'll be discussing the impact of words. Okay? So I hope you could learn something from my discussion. Words are far more than tools for exchanging basic information. They are they are active sculptures of human experience. That's every word we speak, hear, or even think triggers an immediate cascade of biological, psychological, and social responses. At the intersection of psychology and communication, understanding language allows us to see how simple phrases can rewire our neutral pathways, strengthen our strain interpersonal connections, and construct the very lens through which we view the world. Words, guys, directly influence, we cannot deny that, influence cognitive and physiological states, encouraging, of course, positive communication can stimulate the release of feel good neurotransmitters like dopamine and oxytocin, whereas hostile or negative language, of course, triggers cortisol and stress responses, physically altering how our brain processes emotion. In interpersonal dynamics, language serves as either a bridge or a barrier. The tone, phrases, and emotion guides resonance of our dialogue determine trust, intimacy, conflict resolution, and mutual understanding in personal and professional relationships. Rooted in linguistic rela- relativity, the words available to us shape our thought patterns. Not only that, it also shape our not only our thought patterns, could also be our mindset and even our decision making. How we frame our internal dialogue. I do not know if you also have that. You self talk. You talk to yourself. So that's an internal dialogue. And external conversations actively builds our subjective experience of stress, capability, and reality of course, of self. Okay. So today we'll be discussing the impact of words. We often think of language as a way to describe the world, but in truth, language creates our world. A single phrase can flood the brain with stress hormones or calm a racing heart. It can heal a damaged relationship or shatter trust instantly. Language is not just language, or it's not just communication. It's neurology. Neurobiology. It's a neurobiology and social reality in action. Okay, so let's start. Okay, let's have another slide here. Okay, the science of language. Okay, The science of language, guys, focuses on how words are processed physically in the brain and mentally in the mind. The subtitle here tells us three key components: neurobiology, another is psychological dynamics, and the three modes of language: exposure, hearing, speaking, and internalizing. Okay, let's focus on neurobiology, the brain, the physical brain response. This explores what happens chemically and structurally in the brain when language is processed. Specific regions like Wernicke's area, language comprehension, and Broca's area, speech production, process linguistic input in milliseconds. And then words directly affect neurotransmitters and hormone levels. Threatening or harsh words trigger ourselves, and it could release hormones, as I mentioned a while ago. Okay, that is not good for our body. And repeated language patterns physically strengthen neutral pathways. What we hear and say, guys, frequently conditions the brain, our brain, to default to specific emotional and cognitive responses. And then for psychological dynamics, the mind and the behavior, this addresses how language shapes thought patterns, emotion, and even our behavior. So, language, guys, acts as a filter through which we interpret events, things that are happening in our lives. Changing the phrases of a problem alters how the mind perceives difficulty, threat, or opportunity. Psychological guys psychological powers of words directly affects motivation, right? Not only that, but it could also affect our self-regulation, resilience, and even our decision making. So, as I mentioned a while ago, there are three dimensions: hear, speak, and internalize. Okay? Words we hear, receptive language. How external speech influences our physical state, mood, and perception of safety or conflict in our environment. Words we speak, expressive language, how putting thoughts into spoken words organizes our thinking, regulates emotional intensity, and influences social relationships. And words we internalize, that's inner monologue or self-talk, the implicit or explicit dialogue we maintain with ourselves. Over time, internalized language forms are our self concept. Not only that, but also belief systems and baseline psychological resilience. Okay, so take note, guys, that language is not merely an abstract system of communication, it is a measurable physiological event. Every word we hear, we speak, or silently repeat alters our brain chemistry, shapes our psychological health, and ultimately constructs our experience, okay, of reality. Okay, so let's move on to the next slides. Okay, more of the slides. Okay, now how words affect Okay, let's have this. How words affect the brain. Okay. Here, guys, negative or pain related words trigger immediately, actively our mood because it released stress hormone. Okay? Hearing or thinking words with negative or threatening connotation activate something in us, the brain, a key brain region involved in processing sadness and emotional distress. This activation signals the endocrine system to release stress chemicals, okay, putting the body in a heightened state of alertness, anxiety, or defense. Positive words, however, stimulate frontal lobe activity, strengthening language centers linked to execute action and optimism. So take note, guys, no? Words associated with growth, encouragement, and possibility, okay, would also help us, okay, in our decision making, planning, and how we see the world would also affect our emotional regulation. Regular exposure to positive language reinforces neutral circuits that promote executive function, cognitive flexibility, resilience, and a forward thinking mindset. So, actually, studies demonstrate that negative framing directly amplifies subjective pain, intensity, and not only that, fear responses. Language does not just describe discomfort, it changes how intensely we physically feel it. Okay? A phenomenon after linked to the nocebo effect. Telling a patient or student is this is going to hurt badly, heightens anticipation, causing the brain's pain matrix to register higher stress than if the situation were framed calmly or constructively. You might feel a small pinch. So, see the difference. If I will say, this is going to hurt badly, the brain will absorb that, and the absorption of that phrase or that statement would really feel you such that you will really feel that pain. But if you try to rephrase the statement into you might feel a small pinch, that might be a little lighter than the other guys. Okay, see the difference between the two statements. Okay, so how you say your message would also differ. Okay, how what would be the reaction of the receiver to your statement? Okay, so the human language network activates within 50 milliseconds of acoustic input. The brain processes word meanings almost instantaneously at a subconscious speed Long before we consciously deliberate on what someone said, our nervous system has already evaluated the emotional tone of the word and initiated a physical reaction: stress versus safety. Take note, guys. Our brain processes spoken words in as little as 50 milliseconds, faster than a blink of an eye. Okay? So, in that split second, guys, negative words trigger the brain's distress center, elevating stress hormones. Okay? And even making physical pain feel worse. Okay? So, you have to be careful, really, no? In saying words. Okay? You think, because it might also damage the emotions of other people. Positive words engage the prefrontal cortex, boosting problem solving, emotional regulation, and optimism. And it will give a positive feeling toward the person whom you are talking to. If you are a positive person and telling that person such wonderful words rather than negative words. So words act as immediate neutral commands. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, let's move on to another slide here. The power of positive phrasing. Okay, the power of positive phrasing, guys, connects constructive verbal feedback to psychological and physical output. Okay, highlighting highlighting how words influence action through emotion. So let's have the 90% emotional driving force. Over 90% of decision making is prompted by underlying emotional pathways rather than pure logic. While people often assume their choices are guided entirely by rational thought, behavioral psychology demonstrates that emotions act as primary trigger for action. Because decisions are emotional driven, how a message is framed matters significantly. And affirmative, solution oriented language activates feelings of trust, safety, and motivation. People are making people far more receptive to taking constructive action compared to critical or punitive language. So verbal encouragement significantly increase physical stamina, lowers psychological barriers, and elevates overall performance. So there are a lot of barriers. So lowering psychological barriers, encouraging phrasing reduces fear of failure, anxiety, and defensiveness. So when individuals feel psychologically safe, their cognitive load shifts from self protection to problem solving and focused. Okay, so simple motivation cues, whether in a classroom, okay, work room or courtroom, even workplace, stimulate something that pathway. Okay, the neurochemical release helps sustain focus, increases endurance, and improves overall output. Okay, so we like to believe that human beings make decisions purely through logic, but psychological research tells us otherwise. Over 90% of decision making is driven underlying emotional responses. So positive phrases harnesses this reality by replacing punitive or overly critical language with constructive cues. We lower psychological resistance, foster motivation, and measurably boost performance and perseverance across human domain. Okay, let's move on. So let's have semantic prosody and framing. Okay, so here focuses on how subtle word choices carry implicit emotional weight and influence real world perception and outcomes. So we have their semantic implicit associations, cause versus produced. Okay, so beyond formal dictionary, guys, okay, where we get meaning from a dictionary definitions, no? Words absorb emotional coloring based on how they are typically used in culture and language. This hidden connotation is known as semantic prosody. Okay, and then we have their implicit or clinical, I mean, clinical and daily impact. So the vocabulary here chosen by professionals such as doctors, educators, or managers directly impacts the listener's mental state and behavioral response. Okay, so that's it. The difference between the two. So let's move on. Words in workplace leadership. Okay, so shifts the science of language into organizational management, demonstrating how leaders linguistic framing shapes them or shapes team culture, psychological safety, and execution. So reframing errors as learning opportunities, hey guys, foster psychological safety and invites constructive problem solving across teams. When leaders view mistakes through a lens of failure, team members respond with defensiveness or fear by using growth oriented language. Example, why does this data teach us, or I mean, what does this data teach us? Rather than we messed this up, leaders build psychological safety. So employees become far more willing to admit missteps early, take calculated risks, and focus on collaborative problem solving rather than hiding errors. For shared ownership, guys, shifting corporate phrasing from strict accountability to shared ownership eliminates blame culture and encourages collaboration. While accountability is open weaponized in corporate environments as a tool for assigning fault, shared ownership emphasizes collective collective responsibility and mutual support. So phrasing initiatives in terms of shared commitment has something to do with this because it removes the defensive instinct, replaces individual scapegoating with mutual accountability, and foster a unified team identity. And then for the action alignment, the rocket icon, clear affirmative language creates transparent language. I mean, transparent expectations. boosting employee engagement and strategic execution speed. Okay, should be clear. Okay, why? Because it eliminates cognitive friction and second guessing, enabling teams to align quickly and execute strategy with confidence and speed. So in leadership, guys, take note that language is administrative leverage. When we apply growth framing, mistakes become data points rather than fireable offenses, creating the psychological safety required for real innovation. By shifting our language from holding people accountable to cultivating shared ownership, we disassemble um, blame culture. Okay. Finally, using clear affirmative phrasing aligns execution, giving teams the clarity and confidence they need to move fast. Okay. So let's move one. Let's have another one here. So interpersonal impact. Okay. What is this all about? Okay. Here, it focuses on how specific language choices affect rational safety, emotional endurance, and trust. Word choice can instantly dis- de-escalate uh, tension, trigger conflict in personal relationships. So intense interactions, specific phrasings as either a social dynamic circuit breaker or a catalyst for argument. Okay, so here we have there the print words, spoken words in heated moments leave lasting emotional imprints that shape long-term trust and connection. So negative or hurtful statements uttered under emotional distress carry significant psychological weight. Okay? Now, okay. So when we move into interpersonal relationships, words choice becomes the primary dial for emotional intensity. In a moment of friction, an accusatory phrase like "you always do this" immediately triggers defensiveness and escalates conflict. Conversely, empathic framing instantly de-escalates tension. However, furthermore, guys, we have to remember that spoken words carry a lasting imprint. Harsh language spoken during heated moment is not simply forgotten once the argument ends. It alters long-term baseline of trust and connection within the relationship. Okay? That's how this audience trust by tone. We use quantitative quantitative comparison to illustrate how communication style directly impacts listener trust and confidence. So 88% affirming and positive we have there. That's 88%. Generates the highest trust. Constructive, encouraging language signals safety and goodwill, maximizing open communication and buy-in. And then we have there 62% for neutral and informational. Earns moderate trust. Plain, objective facts without emotional connection. inform the listener well, but miss the opportunity to build deeper rapport or motivation. Then we have their directive and critical. We obtain 42%, result in a step drop in trust. Command heavy or hypercritical language triggers caution and resistance, leading to compliance driven by obligation rather than conviction. Then for the 22% guys, punitive or negative yields the lowest, the lowest trust. Threatening or harsh language creates defensiveness, anxiety, and distrust, often leading to active disagreement or pushback. So here, take note that research indicates that positive supportive communication generates dramatically higher trust and active compliance compared to overly critical or punitive phrasing. So when we quantify the effect of tone, the data is stark. An affirming positive approach generates an 88% as you look at the presentation trust rating, four times higher than a punitive negative tone, which drops down to 22% only. So even okay, even neutral, purely informational phrases caps out at 62%. You look at the illustration there. So the takeaway there is clear, guys, that if the goal is to build trust and inspire genuine engagement rather than simple compliance, supportive and constructive phrasing is our most effective tool, therefore. So you look at that one, okay? So I hope you learned something from the explanation. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so we have there the lifetime ripple effect. Here maps out how the language we experience across different developmental stages accumulates over time, ultimately shaping our long-term psychology, identity, and inner voice. So we have their childhood foundations, childhood parental affirmation builds baseline self-esteem and neutral resilience. So in early life, guys, the language used by primary caregivers acts as the primary blueprint for how a child understands their worth and safety. So affirming supportive words lay down the initial neutral circuits for emotional regulation, building foundational self-esteem and physical resilience against stress. Okay. For the next one is adolescence, identity and social collaboration is seen here. Peer language and social feedback calibrate personal identity. So as individuals transition into youth, the source of influential language shifts from parents to peers, educators, and social groups. So verbal feedback, social acceptance, or exclusion during these years calibrates how a young person views their place in social hierarchy. Constructive feedback, guys, therefore, fosters confidence and identity integration, whereas negative labeling can solidify self doubt. Okay, the next to that would be adulthood, professional and rational dynamics. So, workplace dialogue and relationships shape professional confidence. In adult life, daily interactions such as feedback from leaders, collaboration with colleagues, and communication and personal partnerships influence ongoing psychological security. So, take note that clear, constructive, and empowering dialogue drives professional agency, career growth, and healthy rational, or healthy, rational, yeah, healthy rational boundaries, whereas toxic or punitive framing erodes workplace morale and individual efficacy. And then the last stage would be lifelong, okay? Lifelong or internalized dialogue. So internal self-talk establishes ongoing mental health and emotional uh, out outlook. So over time, over a lifetime, the external language we hear in childhood, adolescence, and adulthood becomes our internal monologue. The way we silently speak to ourselves directly governs our daily stress levels, cognitive outlook, and overall mental health. A compassionate internal voice buffers against life challenges, while a punitive internal voice prolongs stress and reduces resilience. So, therefore, guys, take note that language is not really static, it carries a cumulative lifetime ripple effect. It begins in childhood, as you can see on the screen, where parental affirmation lays the neurobiological baseline from self-esteem. I mean, neurobiological baseline for self-esteem. Okay? So here in adolescence, peer feedback calibrates our developing identity. As adults, workplace dialogue or relational communication shape our professional confidence. Ultimately, all of this external language becomes internalized over time, forming self talk that determines our ongoing mental health, resilience, and emotional outlook for the rest of our lives. Okay, next slide. We have here words across modern media expands the impact of language from individual and the interpersonal levels to macro level societal system, focusing on how modern communication channels amplify and shape collective psychology. So I mean digital micro text microtext can foster rapid global empathy or viral anxiety in seconds. In the digital age, like the age that we have right now, language is condensed into short, high impact messages, okay, that spread globally or unprecedented speeds because these short texts often prioritize high emotional framing to capture attention. They trigger rapid neurochemical responses across massive population simultaneously, instantly generating widespread empathy and solidarity or spreading viral outrage, fear, and panic. So here we have their public discourse. Okay, rhetoric from public figures influences societal norms, cohesion, and cultural values. The language, tone, and framing choices used by leaders, okay, public figures, actually, directly establish what is considered acceptable or normal within a society. So, unifying constructive rhetoric strengthens social cohesion, shared purpose, and civic trust. Conversely, guys, divisive or inflammatory language normalizes hostility, fractures public trust, and polarizes communities. And the last one we have there, algorithmic feeds, the digital brain network. So automated narratives curate human attention and shape perception of world events. Machine learning algorithms continuously analyze guys user interaction to feed individual specific linguistic content designed to maximize engagement. So by curating the words, headlines, and narratives, we see daily algorithmic algorithmic systems create tailored filter bubbles. So this continuous exposure reshapes how individual perceive reality, risk, and current events, often reinforcing existing biases and altering collective sentiment. So when we look at words, I mean, on macro daw, this is the macro scale, modern media acts as a force multiplier. First, through social media velocity, short digital messages spread at lightning speed, triggering instantaneous emotional cascades across millions of people. Okay? That's the first one. Second, public discourse demonstrate how the rhetoric of leader sets our cultural norms and dictates whether a society leans toward cohesion or polarization. Okay, yeah. Finally, for algorithmic feeds, passively curate the language now we consume every day, steering human attention and fundamentally constructing our shared perception of global society. Okay, so let's move on. Mindful communication rules. Here, it serves as the practical summary of the entire deck, translating the neuroscience and psychology of language into actionable strategies for daily life, leadership, and personal interactions. So allow emotional processes to clear before choosing words in high stress conversation, for pause before reacting. Okay, for reframe in internal self-talk, consciously shift internal self-criticism into constructive growth minded statements. Okay, and then for choose precision over ambiguity, use clear, deliberate phrasing to eliminate misinterpretation and unnecessary conflict. And then we have there cultivate affirming language, offer genuine specific encouragement to build and elevate performance. Okay. This capitalizes guys on the data showing that positive supportive phrases or phrasing generates maximum trust and optimal engagement. Okay. Now, to bring all of this insight together, mindful communication comes down to four actionable rules. Okay. We have there, so we mentioned the four. Okay, so I will not be repeating them. It's on the screen actually. Okay, so let us have now the next slide. Okay, no more. So if you have question, you may ask questions now. Okay, regarding the lesson. So no more, no question at all. So to bring our discussion full circle, we have seen today that language is far more than just a tool for engaging information. It is a physiological no, event, actually, a cognitive architect, and the foundation of human connection. From the split second chemical reactions in our brains that process words in under 20 milliseconds for long-term emotional imprints that shape our relationships, leadership, and public discourse. The language we choose, guys, carries immense power. It's very powerful. So words can trigger stress and catalyze resilience. They can erect barriers or build profound trust. So we have to be careful really with our words. As we step away from this discussion, the takeaway is clear actually. Mindful communication is merely about speaking politely. It is an intentional practice. By pausing before we react, reframing our internal self talk, choosing precision over ambiguity, and cultivating genuine, affirming language, we change the way we relate to ourselves and the world around us, of course. So every word we hear, we speak, and we internalize leaves a lasting impression. So let us choose our words. Let us choose ours with purpose, clarity, and empathy. Okay, so that whatever words that come out from our mouth, no, it would be with purpose. Okay, so and we might not be hurting other we will not be hurting other people. So that's how words are important. Okay, so I hope you learn something from our discussion today. Bye, guys.